Hello and welcome to today's video. Today I want to present you an opening trap for black in the Petrov Defence. The trap is known as the Copycat Trap because at the beginning of the game, black just simply copies all of white's moves just to switch plans in the right moment. You can see the critical position already on the board. It's black to move and win white at the spot, but take your time before we just jump right into the tactic. I of course want to show you how to reach the position and what white should have done to avoid to get trapped. So without further ado, it's time to checkmate. So the game that we are following is a game between Francesco Perez and Lenin Guerra-Tulchan and took place in 2004. The game started with the moves e4, e5, knight f3, and here black played the move knight f6. This is known as the starting position of the Petrov Defence. White took the pawn on e5. This is known as the classical variation, and in this position d6 would have been the main move for black, and I already made a video about this variation where I show you the Marshall trap. In our video, because it's a copy trap, black of course took the pawn on e4 with the knight, and after queen to e2, black of course played the move queen to e7. Don't make the mistake as black, don't move your knight away, because many games already ended after knight to c5. And I would advise you to pause the video and try to figure out what white's best move in this position. I give you 3 seconds to do so. 1, 2, 3. Well, I hope you have found the solution. If not, I'll give you a little hint. If you find the right discovered check, then you will at least win a queen. So with this hint in mind, I give you another 3 seconds to pause the video if you need to. 1, 2, 3. Well, I hope you have found the solution. The right move is knight to c6 check, attacking the queen and the king at the same time. So black has to do something about it, and let's say he plays a move like knight to e6 to block the check. Well, then you just simply grab off the queen and you're up queen for a knight, and of course this is clearly winning for white. So you really don't want to move your knight away, but instead keep on copying all the moves, and that's why you play queen to e7. White of course took the knight on e4, and now please stop copying, because taking the knight would just simply lose the queen and the game. So this is the point where you really have to stop copying and instead play the move d6. And now white cannot move the knight away, because then you would just simply grab the queen. So he has to do something else, and the most logical move in this position is definitely d4. And here you grab the knight, and after e takes d5, d takes e5, but you just simply develop a knight to c6, attacking the pawn a second time. And here white played a slight mistake, but to be totally honest, it's a move that if I would be white and I would be in the blitz game, I would definitely play myself. And the move is bishop to f4. Don't get me wrong, this move doesn't lose the game, that's not the case. But if white wants to remain with an advantage, then he definitely has to play the move knight to c3. Because after queen takes e5, queen takes e5, knight takes e5, bishop f4 and bishop d6, it may looks like black solved all his opening problems and white and just simply got an equal position. But white got a pretty nice move, bishop to g3. And this is really the only move that keeps an edge for white, because let's say white just simply castled queenside. An absolute logical move, well, you know what? We just simply play knight to d3 check. And after the bishop takes the knight, well, we just simply grab the bishop on f4. And after king b1 and bishop to e6, I even think that black could be a little bit better, because he got a bishop here. His king will move to e7, and then he will bring the rooks to the d file. So you got a pretty simple plan, no weaknesses, and this position is at least equal, if not slightly better for black. And if white would have played another move than castling, well, you know, we're always threatening knight to f3 or knight to d3 check and gaining the bishop. So let's say he plays a move like knight to e4, well, then we just simply play knight to f3 check, and he has to take it with the g-pawn, and then we grab the bishop on f4, and suddenly black is even better. So as you can see, the only move for white to keep an advantage is bishop to g3, and here castling for black is the main move, but I think that this isn't the best move. I think that f6 would be better, and I will show you f6 soon enough, but in nearly every game Black played the move castling, but after knight to b5, threatening to take off the bishop on d6, so this would pretty much ruin our pawn structure. It's already pretty tough for Black to find good moves, you know. I mean, think about it. If White takes the bishop and we have to grab it back, then we will have the pretty bad isolated pawn on d6, and after White castled queenside, his rook is already in d5, so we have to defend this pawn the entire game, and you even lost the bishop pair, so White is already better in my opinion. And even a move like bishop to b4 check doesn't help, because after c3 and bishop to a5, Black can really, White can just simply take the knight on e5, because rook to e8 doesn't work, because White can just simply castle queenside, and after you take the bishop, well, it just simply mate on the 8th rank, so this just didn't help. And this is why I think that in this position f6 could be probably a little bit better, because if White now would play the move bishop, knight to b5, then the check on b4 will work, because after c3 and bishop to a5, I think we reach a position that is slightly better than the one I just showed you earlier. Because if White would now take the knight on e5, we just simply can recapture, and yes, again we got an isolated pawn, but in return we got a bishop pair, and so we may have some chances. Of course, this position is just simply better for White, but I think it's not that hopeless as the position I just showed you earlier, and so I think you still could play on, and well, probably you'll manage to gain a draw or even win it in the endgame, you know. So if you want to go for the queen to e7 line, you have to face that this position could occur, and yeah, no doubt about it, it's White who's better in this position, but well, you still could try to play it, right? And how likely is it that your opponent knows this variation? And especially the bishop to g3 move doesn't look that logic at the first moment, especially in the blitz game. I doubt that someone will find it easily, especially if he's not a top grandmaster, you know. So yeah, let's go back to the game. In our game, White played the move bishop to f4, and as I already told you, I think that this is an absolute logical move. It defends the pawn on e5 a second time, and White really asked Black, well, what do you want to do? How do you get back the pawn? What is your plan, you know? And the problem with this move is that Black can play the move g5, attacking the bishop. And now think about it for yourself. Where would you put your bishop? Well, in the game, White played the move bishop to g3, and this is a big blunder that loses the game White immediately. Instead of bishop to g3, White should have played a move like bishop to d2, or even better, bishop to b5. And this move is tricky, because Black cannot not take the bishop on f4, because after bishop takes c6, b takes c6, and queen takes c6, White will win in exchange, so this is no option. So Black has to play bishop to d7, and here White got a pretty crazy move, e6. Opening up the line for the bishop, attacking the bishop on d7. This is a pretty crazy line, and I just want to show you briefly what could have happened. Let's say f takes e6, bishop takes c7, rook c8, bishop to g3. And here Black has to move queen to b4, attacking the king, the queen, and the bishop at the same time. So White should take the queen, and after some more exchanges, White has to do something about the c2 pawn, so he has to play knight to a3, but we grab it anyway. And after rook to d1 check, king to c6, castling, bishop c5, rook to c1, rook takes c1, rook takes c1, and king d5. We reach an endgame where I think the chances are equal. Well, of course, Black has some problems with his isolated pawn on e6, but his king is already quite active, and so I think that this endgame is about equal, and it should end in a draw by best play of both sides. Please don't make the mistake, don't learn this line this far. I just wanted to show you how a game could continue, because it was hard for me to stop at an earlier point, because how can I stop earlier if I say White plays a move like e6, you know? I mean, I cannot just simply say, hey, you have the pawn and everything is okay. I really had to show you that things will be okay if you play the best moves. So, but you don't have to learn this. It's all good. Anyway, in the game, white played the move bishop to g3, and if I would have been white in the blitz game, I would probably have played the same move, because it's just logical, you know, you just retreat and you're still protecting the pawn on e5. But this is actually a blunder, and I would advise you to pause the video and try to figure out what black's best move is in this position. How can you win white at a spot? I give you 3 seconds to pause the video if you need to. 1, 2, 3. Well, I hope you have found the solution. If not, I'll give you a little hint. White now, the pawn on e5 cannot move away, because then the queen on e4 would be loose. So with this hint in mind, I give another 3 seconds to pause the video. 1, 2, 3. Well, I hope you have found the solution. The right move is f5 exclam, attacking the queen and threatening f4 at the same time, winning the bishop on g3. So what can white play? Well, he cannot simply grab the pawn on f6 en passant, because then he would lose the queen. So this is absolutely not an option. Instead, he could play, for example, queen to e2, and after f4, well, as you already can see, black will win a minor piece, right? So white's best move in this position is probably queen to h5 check, and here you really should play the move queen to f7, because king to d8 looks a little bit risky, because the knight will go to c3, then the white will castle queenside, bringing the rook to the d file. So this is something you should avoid, and instead you just simply should play queen to f7, being willing to give up the g5 pawn. But I think this is still a better variation for you than playing the king to d8. So white will grab the pawn, and you will grab the bishop, and after h takes g3, opening up the line for the rook, you have to move queen to f5, and here we could easily stop. But just in case you're a little bit scared because white got 3 pawns for the bishop, I will show you some more example lines. This is nothing you have to memorize, just to gain a feeling that the position is already winning for black, you know. Let's say white captures the queen. Well, then you just simply recapture, attacking the pawn on c2, and after bishop e5, castling queenside, bishop takes c6, b takes c6, knight c3, and bishop takes c2, where I think it's clear that you are much better. I mean, you have the bishop here, you're up a piece against 2 pawns, and this should be an easy win for you. A better try by black would probably be queen to h5 check. Here you have to take, and after the rook takes, you have to move bishop to g4. The most logical move is rook to h4, and after h5, f3. And here you have a pretty nice move, and this is bishop to g7. You simply just don't care about your bishop, because if white takes the bishop, you have to move bishop takes e5, and you're threatening to take on g3 with check and winning a rook, and you're threatening to take on b2, winning the rook on a1. So yeah, this is already a pretty good position. Let's say rook takes h5, rook takes h5, bishop takes g takes h5, bishop takes b2, g4, bishop takes a1, and g5, king e7. And at this point I will stop my analyze, because black's already winning. Black is up a rook for 2 pawns, and if you're a little bit scared that these pawns could run up the board and getting queened, well, you don't have to be scared, because just think about it that way. White's king is too far away to support those pawns, and even if they will get close to the 8th rank, you always have the option to just simply grab off 2 pawns for a minor piece, and then you still would remain with being up a rook for a bishop. So this is really clearly winning for you. So don't be scared about this position. So yeah, I hope you liked today's video. I hope you learned something. If you did, please let me know in the comments, and don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. So see you next time, and it's again time to checkmate.